set? Okay, I want to call to order the regular Tuesday, November 13th, 2018 meeting of the Board of Directors and the adjourned October 9th, 2018 regular meeting of the Board of Directors. At this point, okay, take a roll call, please.
Yes, Vice President Coverdale.
Here.
Director Reynolds.
Here.
Director Glassberg. President Feldman.
Here.
And Director Michelson is absent.
Pledge of allegiance.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Okay. Item 3, public comment. Any public comment at this point? Okay. Prior to beginning the official stuff, I wanted to say that this format of this meeting appears to be slightly different, and the first I've seen in my time as my board experience, in that we have 2 meetings noted. I believe the last time this may have happened was 12 years ago. I'm not sure. I wasn't here that time, that we had to adjourn a meeting due to a lack of a quorum. And so I guess I was troubled by that a little. And I'll just make a few comments, and you're welcome to beat me up if you wish. But the lack of a quorum to the last meeting was due to a last-minute health issue of one of the board members having to leave the area to take care of some stuff. We had known about one of the items, but we hadn't clear on another absence until pretty late in the game. So everybody was scrambling at the last minute to try to resurrect the meeting, and we couldn't quite do it. So there was no meeting. As a result, we had to allow, because of lack of quorum, an emergency procedure to take place to deal with a pipeline issue that we had no choice but to authorize the general manager to go do based on whatever emergency processes we have. We'll hear more about that one a little later in the meeting. So that was the reason that it caused a little confusion. As a result, what I've asked in concert with the staff and admin to check 2.5 weeks in advance of the meeting, maybe do a poll, make sure we know who's coming and whether they are or aren't coming. Obviously, they would have told us well in advance of that if they knew, and we would be prepared for that. But this time it didn't seem to happen that way, and caused some scrambling at the last minute. And the other thing, which is sort of in concert but not critical, is just the idea that we as a board have a responsibility to the public and our community to make sure we try to attend the meeting each month. It's nice to have 3 or 4 of us, but it's even better to have all 5. And it's been a little spotty this year, I think. We've had on and off times when we really haven't had anybody. And we know about some things well in advance, and we understand that. Some people's plans are made and have to happen. But when it's an elective thing, when it's something that we might be able to move around a little bit so that we don't jeopardize the meeting, that would be good. And that's what I try to do personally each time I look at my calendar, is to make sure elective things I do don't fall on a meeting date, if at all possible. It may be difficult for others, but I hope that they would consider that going forward, because that's our obligation as public servants to the community. And I like it better when we're all here, because then I get to know what everybody's thinking and not feel like I'm leaving someone out and not feeling like I have to recast it the next time I see them to give them the information about what we didn't do, what we did the last time. So that's just my feeling about it. And before we started, I just wanted to make that comment, and hopefully we will keep track of who's here, who isn't, in advance, and have a little better sense of our ability to plan for the meeting and to make sure we can pull it off. Any other comments? Oh. It was just my feeling. I had a desire to express that. The other thing I have a desire to express coughing so much from the smoke is my sadness and disheartenment with the situation that's occurring in Northern California about our people in our state who are suffering interminably. The worst case we've ever seen, I think, in this state. And I think that we all have to hope and be sensitive to that and wish them the very best in getting back to normal again, which, in my view, will not be easy for very, 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 very many people. So that's just another comment I want to make at the outset of the meeting. We who have a little smoke difficulty should feel blessed at this point compared to what we might suffer otherwise. Okay, without further ado, we'll go to the consent calendar. Do I have any items to come off the calendar, or anybody wish to table?
I move we approve the consent calendar.
I have no items to take off, but after the vote, I do have a couple questions.
Okay.
I'll,
Sure.
I'll second the consent calendar.
Excuse me. Roll call, please.
Yes, Vice President Coverdell?
Aye.
Director Reynolds?
Yep.
Director Glassberg?
Aye.
President Feldman?
Yes,
Thank you.
Director Glassman.
On the budget report, monthly budget report, I just had a question. I was looking at the amount we, water purchased, obviously. we're
Right.
Spending most of our money now, or getting most of our water from Crystal Springs, but I'm just wondering, isn't November 1st the cut point where we start getting water from out in the Denniston area, or
Wells,
the wells, yeah?
Wells and Pilarcitos, yes.
And
November 1st is the time when we're allowed to start pumping, but there needs to be sufficient water in the creek. Have we started?
We have one well running at 70 gallons a minute.
So we getting a trickle.
Yeah, not much.
Yeah, we desperately need some rain. If we get some good rain, we'll start Denniston and have water from Pilarcitos.
So then we probably should anticipate continuing to be a fair amount over budget for water purchases, huh?
Yes.
Okay. The other questions, I have several questions around, I was looking at the monthly investment report, and, I mean, we see this every month, but for whatever reason, I just started thinking about the LAIF, the Local Agency Investment Fund, and just had some questions around LAIF and how that works. My own experience was that LAIF was operated by the county. Is that the case
No,
here?
It's a state.
Oh, it's a state
State
investment
run,
fund?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, it's run by, the state treasurer.
Oh, okay. And do we determine, well, I assume we determine how much money we put in at any given point in time?
Yes.
How do you decide when to put money in and?
Well, part of it is, our liquidity, and, now we've actually, built up some of our cash. In the last few years, we used a lot of our cash before we received loans, so, so we weren't able to put money in there, but now, we're able to increase, the amount that we put in. The fund is very liquid. We can take money out tomorrow if we need it. The interest rate is actually quite great right now. It had been, for years it had been really low, like, below 0.5, 0.4 of a percent. But now it's, as of the last few months, it's been 2.16%.
Wow.
So we've seen just, our interest going up, and so it's been actually beneficial for us to have funds and money in the funds. I'll also point out that it is, our investment policy calls for investing in LAIF because it is a safe fund.
Right. So, so generally, at least in the old days when I was involved with the county LAIFs, because it was the statewide, it was county at the time, whatever county you were in, we control, like I could call the county treasurer's office and say, I want to invest $100,000 in money markets for 90 days. How does it work now?
This is a pooled fund. So it's basically, it's a fund made up of, basically there are 2,400 agencies in California who are in this pool. So we don't it's basically we're putting our money into the fund, into the pool.
Do you control how long it stays there?
No, we can move our money.
That's
in
what I
and out.
mean.
Yes, we can move our money, if I put money in tomorrow and take it out the next day, we can do that.
But so when you're putting our money in,
Yeah.
you're just saying, okay, here's, $100,000, and when you decide to take it out, you take it out. There are no restrictions on that or the
No.
amount that you're putting in.
Right.
And so, actually, it always was a really good investment vehicle. They always somehow, at least in LA County, they always paid the highest investment rate. Do you have any sense of, will this, since we're putting more money in now because we have it, how does this play into what we budgeted for interest income?
We're actually getting more interest than
That's
what
what
we
I
budgeted. We had a nice surprise of, our last quarter, we received close to $12,000 in interest, and that was, last year, we received $15,000 in interest for the whole year.
For the whole year?
Yes,
Oh,
so
okay,
it is
good.
there's some upside in putting more money in this fund and moving money here, particularly as, we may be waiting to spend, because, we might not be spending the capital money, right away, so.
So we know, for instance, when our bond indebtedness is due, pretty much, it's the summer,
Right.
it hits us the first quarter.
And then in February.
In February,
We'll
so-
have big payments.
So I guess what I'm wondering is it possible to kind of hone or maybe you already do this, hone our cash flow to the point where maximize, since we can pull it out anytime we want, out of LAIF, to maximize how much we've got in there and have just enough in our other accounts to pay our, payroll and all that
Yeah,
kind of stuff?
yes, I think we can increase the amount that we put in there.
Okay.
Because now it is, the interest rate is, is actually very nice at
Yeah.
2.16.
Yeah, every little bit counts. Thank you. The last question I had, Mr. President, was on the monthly production. I was just noticing when we compare this year to last year, that our October production dropped like a stone compared to last year. I'm just wondering if there are any explanations for that, any obvious explanations. I'm looking at the graph, maybe it magnifies it more than it really is.
I'll just say that in terms of our revenue, we saw a little bit of a drop in sales. And largely on actually the single-family residential, which was interesting.
Yeah,
It was a drop of about 3 million gallons year over year.
Yeah, because, on this, it looks like last year we were somewhere around 64, 65. I assume that's million gallons. Yeah, millions of gallons, and this year it was just around 50.
Yeah.
That was a pretty significant, 15 million? Am I reading that incorrectly?
That's what the table says.
Yeah,
500,000 gallons a day essentially.
500,000 a day, 15 million, yeah, right. It's this graph that I'm looking at, right?
Right.
Yeah, so that's like 25%, right? Just seemed like a big drop, unusually big drop, that's why I was,
Is that drought tolerant landscaping?
is that what I'm, because we certainly haven't gotten any rain. No ideas, huh? Okay, thank you, that was all I had,
They
There's
were
a-
warm this October, but I remember last October being much warmer, but I just remember.
maybe.
We'll,
So you did look into which class of users was actually reducing usage?
You said, you thought it was the residential that was the big.
I had thought it personally had something to do with the fact that people were finally getting the impact of the new bill structure we have, which increased rates for certain classes of users. However, it wasn't in that range.
Well, that's weird.
That user, so
I would say there's an issue with that number because.
I wonder if the
Our
chart,
sales,
the graph is off,
Yeah, the
because
sales.
looking
yeah, the
at
sales,
this is 5
well,
million,
the
but
tables
it's-
are off as well. The sales, total sales in October, we show 65 versus 69, 70
Yeah,
last year.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
bad.
If you look at the
Right.
graph, it's very
Yeah.
different, so maybe it was just, the
Just-
graph is
yeah.
just erroneous.
Well,
Which I
there's-
could feel a lot better about.
we'll look into that. That, the 50 does not look right.
Doesn't look right.
No, it doesn't.
Not as you mentioned.
Okay,
Okay, that's
super.
good,
Thank you.
good analysis. Any other, excuse me, comments, questions on the consent calendar? Okay, given that, we'll move to meetings attended, director comments.
Yeah, so I have two. The first meeting I attended was church, and a person in church gave me the publication from the Historical Association. And it had one of the best write-ups I've ever seen about Crystal Springs and SFPUC. So I brought copies. I ordered copies for each and every one of you, except it stops right there, so I'm sorry, Mr. Durbin. But hopefully there will be a trickle-down theory working in the district, and hopefully you'll put them in the library. But it was one of the most complete and succinct articles I've seen about the original Crystal Springs Dam. It's just a really great write-up. So I hope you enjoy it. It's a present from me to you. And
Thank you.
And, enjoy it. Meetings attended. I did attend a meeting that I would heartily encourage each and every person to attend next year.
heartily or hardly?
Heartily, with heart.
Okay.
So the Tuolumne River Trust
Oh, yeah.
puts on a really cool trip where you get to canoe with the migrating salmon. And it occurs on the Tuolumne River, of course, and it occurs right below the Don Pedro Dam. And it's absolutely incredible. The salmon that we saw thousands of salmon, and they were big. And they were at the last breath. It was about 1.5 miles below the dam. So they were really at the end. They were, the females were burrowing in the gravels and depositing their eggs. The males, of course, were quickly competing to try to encourage those eggs to become young fry. They were jumping out of the water. It was just, I have to tell you that last couple of years, apparently they haven't seen very many. But the coolest thing was not only did we get to see them, but we were able to get into canoes and canoe a few miles down the Tuolumne River. And the water quality was fantastic. The clarity was amazing. It was just an incredible trip. And it really, for me, gave me a tremendous amount of hope. I mean, the numbers are horrible still. I think they're down to under 10,000 fish that are really kind of making it all the way through these days. But that's up from previous years. And it was just absolutely fantastic. They used to do a trip called Paddle to the Sea, where you could literally start below the O'Shaughnessy Dam and you could raft in the springtime. And it actually ended up going through the Delta on boats and then even into the bay all the way to the Golden Gate Bridge. They've kind of tabled that project because it's, of course, difficult to put on. It's expensive, it's time-consuming. But we're really encouraging them. And if any of you would have an interest in that, I'd be happy to share that with the members of the Tuolumne River Trust, because I, for one, think it'd be one of the most incredible experiences you could have in the state of California, to come from the source of the SFPUC water and actually float portions of that river, paddle portions, and then, essentially go across the Delta and into the San Francisco Bay. I just think it would be phenomenal. But the canoe trip was great. It's about a 5-hour trip. You meet up there. It's quite a long drive, but it's about a 5-hour trip on the river. It was really reinforcing to me because I kind of expected a big pressure deal like we had when we went on the Hetch Hetchy tour, the time that we went on that. A lot of pressure about save the river and what are you doing and, what's your job in the world and, don't you think we better stop all use of river? It wasn't at all like that. It was very educational, it was very inspirational, and it was very informative. Obviously there was a twist. I mean, there was a bend to their presentation, but I just haven't, I've kind of always viewed that as, oh my gosh, they're the ones that, really want to destroy O'Shaughnessy Dam, and they, want to, stop the use of the Tuolumne River water and all that. These people were amazing people, and it wasn't about that at all. It was really fantastic. So I would encourage you, if you have an opportunity next year about this time. I personally have never witnessed in shallow water in a river the migration. I've seen it at the, some of the dams, Coeur d'Alene Dam up in the Columbia River. I've seen it in other areas. Up in the Olympic Peninsula, we saw the migration of the steelhead. But this was California, and it was right in the thick of it. I mean, you're right there in outside of Modesto, and it was really cool, really fantastic. And I can tell you, in my opinion, the Tuolumne River looks pretty healthy considering, the draw. And you understand right now the politics, because
I was gonna say.
the big arguments
Big
are
argument.
40%, for the fish.
Right.
And so that, it's part of a negotiation. And that's not going well.
Interior, no, this is what I was gonna ask you about. It sounds like that flies in the face of them wanting to do all that stuff.
It doesn't, it's legitimate, but it's, whether we can really do that as water users, I don't know. But the 40% from the standpoint of the fishes is probably a minimum. And, that it was passed by the SFPUC, that, and the mayor vetoed it. And, to encourage, and I can't remember the name of the plan, but the plan is to require 40% releases for fish. And SFPUC was going for it all the way, the whole board. And the new mayor of San Francisco vetoed it. It's pretty wild. So the politics are going to get extreme. But it was great to have an apolitical environmental
Good.
witnessing. That was the way I saw it. And, I can't believe what the vigor of a fish must be to swim all the frickin' way from the Pacific Ocean all the way to Don Pedro Dam and spawn. I mean, it was really touching, really touching.
Salmon are tough,
Yeah,
hardy folk.
thank goodness.
Any, we have one,
I went to the Cal Nevada AWWA meeting in Palm Springs, and it was good. The federal regulatory preview was less burdensome than some years when they preview it, tell us what to expect coming down the pike. The state preview, I guess I was, I thought that what the state is planning for rules and regulations wasn't as clean as the federal one, and that was disconcerting. But yeah, it was the speaker who spoke was not the person who originally prepared the presentation, so it may have just come across as really bad presentation, but he kept talking about a lot of things the state wants to regulate and work on. And it wasn't stuff that had crossed my radar prior to this presentation. So I was a little like, how come we're, usually you hear it from the feds and then a couple of years later you hear it from the state. So we'll see.
there was a facilities committee meeting about a week ago. And to look into how things are moving on the capital plan execution and where we stood at meeting the objectives toward the year end. It appears that things are a little bit slower than we hoped, and maybe tough to meet the objectives we'd set out for this year's capital plans in terms of total expenditure. But what did come up as an item of interest, which you'll hear more about later when the general manager presents further staff work on this, is that the difficulty is becoming more looking at a 3-4 year capital plan and not being able to meld that together in a way that gives us a better chance of achieving the objectives we'd like to. And there's a potential of finding some support to actually look at those plans on a broader basis. And even though they're still the same duration in terms of time window, look at how to package them a little better so that we can actually pull together things that we can achieve each year in a rational manner, looking at all the parameters that affect some of the projects in terms of approvals and permits and stuff like that. So we're not going to get into it right here, but we asked the general manager to actually look to do something and present that to us going forward in terms of a proposal to how to make the objective of meeting these capital plan numbers each year look more factual and accurate going forward. Okay, any questions on it? I think it's a positive.
Good idea.
Okay. Okay, with that, I was looking at the production sources, from all sources, the total of 60.49 plus should be 58, I think, not 50.
Yes,
Yes?
you're right.
Okay.
60.49 minus 2.09.
Yes, 58.
Yep.
So you caught it, and so
58
it
point-
really is not the dip it looks like. It's really a lot better than it
58.4.
was. I just happen to be looking at that page.
Yeah,
So I think we just, it's
I was doing that too, yeah.
a misaddition.
Yeah.
Okay, so it looks a little
Spreadsheets.
better than we,
Sorry about that.
not quite that grim. Okay. Yeah, those calculators are good here every time. Excuse me.
But if only we could sell so much more than we produced.
Yeah.
General business, here's the item A, construction of Highway 1 South 2-inch main emergency replacement. I'll turn that over to Dave.
Okay, the Highway 1 South is one you've been hearing about for many years. This is a project involving about 3,300 feet of pipeline running along Highway 1 South from Miramontes Point Road. It's an 2-inch galvanized main that the district inherited or took over from Citizens Utilities when the district was formed. There are 6 active services on this pipeline, and for a number of reasons, well, we have struggled for years with this pipeline and with the concept of spending $1 million to $1.5 million for 6 services. So in this case, procrastination has led us to a little bit better solution for a number of reasons, not the least of which is permitting. We decided we would we could best replace this line quickly by putting in another 2-inch line. Putting in another 2-inch line, it's exempt from CEQA, and it's exempt from coastal development permit requirements. So, and we think hydraulically it's going to work. We've looked at the amount of water those services use, and we think with a line that is actually 2 inches in inside diameter, as opposed to probably the inside of the existing pipe is about the diameter of your finger once you count for all the rust. We think that hydraulically it's going to work. So we had a project all lined up to award at the October meeting. When we didn't have that meeting, I consulted with President Feldman about what we felt was the immediate need to do the project. We literally have been having our staff manage the water usage of these 6 services pretty much on a daily basis. We have one person at the end who only takes water at night, but we'll get a call from somebody saying, oh, we don't have any water, and then one of our crew will go down there and ask the other people to stop using the water so the guy up the street can take a shower. It's been sort of like that. So it's substandard service for a water district, and therefore we've regarded that as a matter of some urgency to get it fixed. In consultation with President Feldman, I awarded the contract under the emergency procurement provisions of Resolution 2016-09, as further explained in the staff report. We awarded a contract to Andrini, which we sole sourced because they were ready to go, $324,679. They are, I think, they started last week.
Yes.
And they've got about 2,500 feet of pipe in so far. So they're just about, by tomorrow, they'll have all the pipe in.
Except for the services.
Right,
tied
So
in.
this, they won't have the services reconnected and the pipe disinfected and all that. So this has been the provisions of Resolution 2016-09 said that after awarding a contract under this clause, that I should give the board a full report, and there you have it.
Director Covenant.
What kind of pipe is the new pipe?
HDPE, high-density polyethylene.
And it's a dead-end pipe, right? Just goes down in dead ends?
We're putting a blow off at the very end,
Okay, and
So,
so
yes.
that's the way to keep the chemistry properly done in that situation.
if need be.
Yeah,
But it basically stops at Cal Ranch when it hits the last services.
nice. And in these plastic pipes, do they ever actually start to build up? Ever? Forever, never? Okay, cool, good. I think it's great, good job. Thanks, President Feldman.
So you reinforced my recollection. We'd always been talking about like $1 million or more to do this, and it came in at 324,000?
Good deal.
Yeah. How'd that happen?
We,
Smaller size.
District,
Were we planning
Jim
bigger?
Teeter, our district engineer, had prepared plans in 2008, I think, 2009, to replace the pipeline with what would otherwise be our standard pipeline that would add fire protection at the end of the line. That would require that we put in an 8-inch pipe, and that we, so it was a different construction approach, cut and cover, different size pipe. So that was the reason for the bigger number.
Different project, really.
Right, and we had, I think 700.
750.
Yeah, 750,000
In the budget.
in the budget for this. So we'll come in at probably 400,000, including the engineering. So it's a significant savings.
It solves the problem, best of all.
Long time in coming, but took care of itself in a way, I guess, with our help. Other comments on it? No, there was the only way to go here at this point, so we did it, and we're done soon. Yeah, so all those cones off of Route 1, and they're multi-lining purple. It's cute. Okay, next thing, agreement with Rockwell Consulting Group to provide plans and specifications for the Alves tank improvement. That's it, excellent. Interesting project.
Okay, we started talking with the board about the Alves tank improvements, this is another project that has been in our CIP, I think, since 2008, something like that. So we've known this is our largest tank, it's 2 million gallons. We've known for some time that it needs to be recoated. It was built in 1970s, not been recoated since then. If you look at it, it looks pretty bad. It's got big streaks of rust on the outside. It's still in serviceable condition, but definitely needs repair and recoating. One of the things that we did at the suggestion of Pakpur Engineering was to do a seismic analysis of the tank. We felt that as we maintain our tanks, which are meant to be permanent assets of the district, that we should ensure as we go along, to the extent we can, that they meet current seismic standards. And so we had a seismic evaluation of the tank done. We awarded that contract, I think it was back in February, something like that. So that goes back to February. And we included as an attachment to the staff report the structural review and retrofit strategy report provided by Cornerstone Structural Engineering Group. Basically, the conclusion of that report is that the tank in its unmodified condition would be severely damaged with possible loss of contents in the design level seismic event. And Cornerstone, with the help of Paso Robles Tank and Pakpur Engineering, provided some alternatives for bringing the tank within seismic requirements, both repair and retrofit alternatives. After some internal discussion, we decided that probably the best approach for the district, given that there's very little turnover of water in this tank, and I could go into some more detail about why that is, but there's very little turnover of the water in this tank. So there's really a lot of essentially unused volume there. Yes, it would be needed if we ever totally ran out of water and we're, counting down the gallons until zero. But under normal operating conditions, that water is used very little. It essentially is a wide spot in the pipe on the way to the Miramontes tank, which serves only the Moonridge subdivision. So we focused on option one, which is the least expensive and involves lowering the operating level in the tank from 23 feet to 17.5 feet. That takes away about 500,000 gallons of volume, but makes the structural retrofit, basically any of the significant structural retrofits that would be necessary to sustain the higher water level unnecessary. So the estimate for option one is a little bit under $1 million, I think, for the recoating. And usually when we go into the tanks, we find that there's a lot of corrosion on the rafters, so there's usually a change order to do rafter repairs ranging from significant to complete. So that's the staff's recommended approach. We ask POCPOR to provide a proposal to prepare design and project documents for the Alves Tank rehabilitation project. And I have that proposal attached to the staff report. Attachment B, the estimated total for that design effort is $70,000. That's consistent with what we've spent for project documents for our other tanks, and we're recommending that you authorize us to contract with POCPOR to do that work.
Comments? The Facilities Committee met about this as well when we discussed the status of projects, and we're glad to know that this exhaustive research had been done by Cornerstone. I don't think it was as obvious previously, and that the selected option was at the end of the day going to be half the price that had been budgeted, approximately half the price, until we know what's in the tank and they have to go and take a look, etc. But definitely better than we, and the fact that they'd already taken down the tank 5 feet, 5.5 feet, was good plan. And so we were partially on the way to keeping ourselves whole. So that was our impression. Is that right, Gene?
Yep.
Any other comments?
I think it's a great plan.
Okay.
I think we should approve POCPOR's
Okay.
proposal.
Have a second?
Second.
Okay, have a roll call, please.
That's to authorize the general manager to enter into a professional services agreement with POCPOR Consulting, Inc. to prepare plans and specifications for the Alves tank improvements on a time and materials cost not to exceed $69,886.
Isn't that what I just said?
Vice President Coverdell?
Aye.
Director Reynolds, Director Glassberg?
Aye.
President Feldman?
Yes.
I have a question
Yes.
about the project, not the proposal.
Mhm.
So I remember when we did Tank 2 up in El Granada, we had a temporary tank
Yes.
established, but that's a much smaller tank, right? So do we do a similar thing for this one? What do we do with 2 million gallons of water while they're
Well,
working on it?
we'll put it into the system. We have ways of sagging the tank so that we can dispose of, we can use almost all of that water. We can shut off the supply and make sure that it's well chlorinated and use it in Moonridge through the Miramontes tank. That's one way of getting rid of it. We won't dump it.
No, I assume not. I
Right.
was just wondering what you do with it. Yeah,
Right.
okay.
And we may need the temporary tank because the Alves tank serves as holding for the water that gets pumped to Miramontes, but we may also be able to connect the Miramontes pumps directly to the pipeline that comes into Alves. So that would obviate the need for the temporary tank. We haven't figured out which is the best approach.
It's a work in process. Now that you're going forward, the proposal, we'll talk about these, come up with a strategy for this.
Right, the construction approach, right.
All righty. Other comments? Okay. Next thing is PAX Water Technologies tank mixers.
Evening, board members. Trihalomethanes are a disinfection byproduct when the chlorine that we are required to have in the water system reacts with organics. It's one of the reasons that San Francisco Water went to chloramines, because it was so difficult for them to meet the new limit of 80 parts per billion of trihalomethanes. So the district's experienced some high levels of trihalomethanes, but we've done our best to manage them, and we've noticed that one of the best way to handle that is to mix the tanks. The water will get stratified in there, which will cause formation of trihalomethanes at a greater rate, and if you mix them, they will off-gas a little bit, and the water stays essentially fresher. We did a PAX study back in 2018 and received it on what would be the best way to handle our trihalomethanes. We're currently around the 60-70 range, depending on the time of year, for our annual average. So we're below the MCL, but not well below. PAX recommended that we do tank mixing, aeration, and venting of the tanks. And after talking with district staff, we thought we'd just start with the tank mixing and see how that does. And we're confident we should get about 8 to 10% reduction by putting tank mixers in Half Moon Bay tanks 1, 2, and 3 at the Nunez plant, and then also at the Denniston tank right after the water is treated. So this is for a total amount of $110,000 included shipping. The PAX recommendation was much higher. It was closer to $400,000 for the full gamut of what they were recommending. PAX is the sole vendor of their technologies, so we're going to be asking that you waive Resolution 2016-19 of obtaining sealed competitive bids and purchase the equipment as a sole source through PAX, and allow us to buy 4 tank mixers for these tanks that I've described. If you have any questions, I'm here. Your pleasure.
How does the mixer, is it an electric motor or?
The smaller ones, it's
outboard
kind of
one?
teardropped and use low voltage, and we'll shoot it up, and it kind of mushrooms out towards the top.
But it is a pump that lives in the water,
It's a little tiny pump.
little water feature.
Right, and then like on the Denniston tank, it's on a tripod, and it's a little different design. It has a rotating head to get a higher velocity for a larger mixing area.
And it's powered by low voltage electricity?
I believe 240 or 120, I'd have to.
Oh, it is, so it's full on?
Yeah.
Full tilt. Is that dangerous in any way?
No.
They're ground fault interrupted, protected.
And I have a chart here if you want to look at the THM levels that we've experienced over the years, if you guys are interested. It's
Sure.
just an aside. There is some variation depending if Denniston is running or not. So when Denniston's off, the THMs do drop a little bit because of the organics in that watershed.
In the context here of the tax estimate, that is their recommendation of $388,000. You decide to take a more measured approach and stage this, or is this initial step going to be it, or do you think we'll be doing additional things later? I'm just trying to understand if
Sure.
the 388 is still the number at the end of the trail.
We are hoping to avoid tank venting and aeration if we can. We're confident the tank mixing will do it, as well as careful boosting of chlorine out in the distribution system.
No, I'm not. I think, I'm
Right.
glad you're looking at innovative ways to move this to a lower tier, and if it works as you hope it does, you'll have put us ahead by $278,000. I mean.
Yeah, we believe so. We're probably, as we do Alves, we'll add a tank mixer there.
Sure.
But we wanted to start at where the water's made
Okay.
and hit it right when it comes out of
So
the
you'll
plants.
report back after this is in and running?
Certainly, and I
whether
just-
this has worked out as you would hope.
Certainly, I just want to point out in 2016, if you look at the fourth quarter, Denniston was shut down in October of that year.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see those numbers at the top table, 2016, in the column for the fourth. And then the first quarter, Denniston was offline due to weather in 2017. And then as you see, as Denniston comes online, the THMs do go up. And these mixers are hopefully going to help us alleviate that issue.
Yeah.
But it's kind of interesting because the general trend from 15 to 18 is down.
We've also
So
been
how did you do that? What was the magic that you were incorporating to?
carefully boosting chlorine and sagging tanks, which is where you let the water level come down and freshen up. If you keep a tank full of chlorinated water and you don't have a lot of demand, THMs just start to build up.
Because, and in 2015, we weren't using much Denniston water, were we? I mean, that whole year was probably not much. It was a drought year, and I mean, the system was funky and being rebuilt, right? Denniston system, that's when we started doing all the clarifier work and all that stuff, wasn't it?
I think we'd completed it by 2015, but we hadn't had enough water yet to really run it
Right.
that much.
So it's kind of interesting. I mean, it just looks like you're doing a great job, overall, without them. I'm not talking against them, but I'm just suggesting, it looks like everybody's paying attention. I mean, that's what I see.
Yeah, these mixers, I think, will give staff a little more comfort.
Yeah.
You think we can do better? I mean, you're saying you want to do a
Higher
greater
quality.
job, basically.
Yes.
That's cool. No, good point.
Okay, ready for a motion?
Ready for motion?
I move that we waive the requirement in Resolution 2016-09 to obtain sealed competitive bids for the purchase of equipment and supplies exceeding $30,000, and authorize staff to purchase 4 PAX Water Technologies tank mixers to reduce the level of regulated THMs in the water distribution system at a cost of $110,000.
Do I second it?
Can I ask
Roll.
one more question? If these, I don't know how to say it, trihalomethanes are in the tank, and then you vent them and you release them, is there any environmental impact of that
Not that I
stuff
know
pouring
of.
out the top?
Not
I mean,
that I
it
know.
doesn't float out and fall on the ground, and,
No, I think it just keeps going up.
yeah, it's an up thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's atmospheric hazard. It's more if drinking
I've
it.
never, ever heard anybody talk about the off-gassing of the THMs. And remember, you're talking at incredibly low levels.
Well, I'm not trying to panic here, I just don't know. I'm just curious.
The trees around the tanks look very healthy.
Oh, good, yeah. You're talking about the cell tower trees, right? Yeah. They stay very green.
And the good news actually on this is that when disinfection byproducts came into the radar by being regulated by the government, there were some very, very expensive options played out and tried by different water utilities. And mixing, aeration, and venting have proven to be very successful, very simple, very cost-effective, easier for the operators to manage in that it's stable and not requiring daily care and feed. Some of the other options required basically a PhD chemist to be fussing with the water chemistry daily.
Wow.
So I would say that this puts us in with the 99% norm of well-managed water utilities in managing disinfection byproducts, so.
Great. Thanks for the base and perception setting. You want to take the roll call?
Of course. Director Coverdell?
Aye.
Director Ramos, Director Glassberg? President Feldman?
Yes. Okay, next item, resolution adopting a surplus property policy for the Coastside County Water District. And that's Mary going to do this, and I think that's a follow-on to Arnie's comment. What happens when we have surplus stuff? And so this is what happens,
Yeah,
or what
so
we're
for-
proposing happens.
That'll show me.
So
This is
from,
what we're proposing happens.
yeah, so from time to time, the district has property that is no longer usable, and we need to dispose of. So we have developed a policy that would authorize the general manager to dispose of the surplus property. And this policy outlines the methods of disposal. We found, like, for example, with vehicles, for instance, under our current way of disposing, we would advertise the vehicles, and we'd go to great lengths to try to get bids, and historically have not gotten much money, and this would allow, for example, for us to choose to trade the vehicles in. So the policy also provides that neither staff or board members can buy our
There went your redwood,
surplus
Ken.
properties, so.
The Hazen's tank I've been looking for.
There it goes.
And this is, we've limited it to, basically property that has a book value of less than 15,000, so. So we request that you approve this resolution.
I move we approve this resolution number.
Any other comments on it?
Doesn't have a
Second.
number. Doesn't have a
2018-10.
Oh, there it is, 2018-10. I'll second the
So-
resolution to approve 28-10.
With Joanne's clarification, of course, of exactly what.
With full,
we're moving.
full title enunciation and elocution.
So just as a picky question, because this can be a tricky area, I assume this received review by legal counsel?
Yes.
Good.
But you notice he's not named, he can get junk
Yeah,
meters, I
yeah.
did notice that. Not allowed to pick them up.
Quick, Bob, you're losing control
Roll
here.
call. When he drives off with a truck tonight, we'll know that. We've been
As long as
had.
you lose the Porsche.
climb up into the truck, because it takes two hands to pull up into the new truck. You better get the
Roll call, please.
quick.
Roll call, please.
Vice President Coverdell?
Yes.
Director Reynolds?
Yes.
Director Glassberg?
Yes.
President Feldman?
Yes.
Quick. Turn the page.
Quarterly, next thing on the agenda is quarterly financial review. I'll turn it over to Mary.
Yeah, so this report was intended for last month, and so we actually have one more month of results. But, as of last month, our revenue was up 301,000. I will say we went a little bit backwards in October with selling less than what we had planned, but as of the end of September, we were up, which offset some of our additional costs associated with our SFPUC costs of not being able to run Denniston. So as of last month, we were down 377,000. And and then that grew some more in October. So it is something that we're watching, and we're hoping for rain soon, so. And, then we had some other savings offsets, but, so, we're, proceeding cautiously, but we're moving forward. We also note that our loan, we had the benefit of our refinancing, that we didn't spend $50,000 on a loan payment in September. Anyway, do you have any questions?
So in the end, we're still ahead about 150,000 so far, is that correct?
Yes, but if you go back to, well,
But losing
Yeah.
it quickly.
so hopefully we can start running Denniston we can get some rain.
We're doing well on the CIP side.
I should notice, but the Chase Bank loan is shown in red. Is that because it was out of sync with what we had planned, or we hadn't planned that
We had not planned.
for that? But it'll come into sync again some other month when we,
Well,
When
if
we
you
have
notice, we're not
a
spending.
planned cost that isn't going to happen. I'm confused.
Oh, well, we didn't make the payment, there's two line items. So
Okay.
we didn't make the payment on the line item that's 5712.
Okay.
So for 368,775, and then we paid out the Chase Bank. So the net impact was, we had a $50,000
Okay, I got you, I got
savings.
you. I mean, it worked out, I got you. Okay, so that was just, that was the net 50. Got you.
Yeah.
No, it was a good deal. All right. Didn't quite get that. Yeah. I just saw red. Next on the agenda, the Assistant General Manager's report.
So this past month, we launched Water Smart, and so all of our customers received a postcard. You should have received the postcard. We have an updated website, if you haven't noticed. We also had a great presentation and display at Pumpkin Festival, and including our wonderful signage here. So thank you for, to Kathleen, because she's done all this great work. We also put out a constant contact as well. So, at this point, we're growing. We have a few people signing on every day. So I think today we're close to 460 people.
How many? 560?
460.
Wow.
So it's, and.
It's catching on slowly.
Yeah, so.
You don't think it had any impact on people seeing how much they're spending and what their projected use is, and maybe reduce their use lately? Do you think that
Well,
as a fact?
I'm
I'm looking at anything I can to find out what might have happened.
Yeah, we are, we are saving our customers money.
Yeah.
I think in terms, we're starting to keep some statistics, so at some point in time I can report on those. But we had, I think, last month actually there was a 3-week period we were looking at that we had leaks that had been at a rate of, over the leak period, 167,000 gallons that we actually, we stopped the leaks by working with our customers. So.
There's less water used that way.
Yeah, there's your water right
Drop in
there.
revenue.
There's your water.
That may account for a
Very
little
little
drop
about that.
in use.
Right.
Are there any other questions on Water Smart?
So,
Yeah, my wife is pissed. She turns on the faucet, my phone goes off. I tell my wife to
Well, you
turn
have
off
it
the
set up.
faucet. Yeah, I have it
She
set
runs the
up.
water report?
Yeah, she runs the water, my phone goes off.
Oh, jeez.
You must have set to a very low.
I said double our average, and literally every time she touches the faucet,
Wow.
not faucet, the garden hose, she gets,
The garden
we're gonna
hose.
have a
Have you thought
garden.
about
Oh,
counseling?
that's,
Have you considered counseling?
okay, that's.
I'm just glad to see
Yes.
BlackBerry's still in business, I'm sure. Are you sure that this Water Smart isn't from the 70s? Or
It's funny, we did notice that. We were saying Water Smart needed to provide us with some more, better images for our marketing.
They just don't realize where we live. It just only has to be an iPhone, right?
Right.
I can only assume that there aren't lots of folks like Glenn who set their phone up to.
You don't have yours
You're
set
an
up?
expert.
You don't
I
have
got
yours
mine
set
set
up?
up.
Not-
Could we have a tutorial? That just sounds like so much fun.
Come on, guys, you're the board. You're supposed to be setting this up.
Yeah, I'm using it.
I just looked at
I just
it.
got noticed yesterday. It's very upsetting when that notice comes through.
It gets your attention. I pay attention. No, it works really well. You get it, the phone goes off, I look at it, and I'm like, okay, where's Nancy?
In the garden.
Okay.
It's very common to blame your spouse, by the way. You're not alone. It's always.
It's Frank.
Well, that will comfort her, no end.
Okay, well,
But I have to say, I've heard I've heard positive comments from a number of people about the interactions they've had with the district over WaterSmart.
Oh, yeah.
I have several neighbors who've talked to me about it. In fact, one has emailed me and said, well, how do I detect a leak? We actually, when he first went on the AMI, we were talking and I told him he had a 6-gallon an hour irrigation system leak. That's a lot of money.
That's a lot of water.
So he found that ultimately and stopped it, and so he's been engaging with WaterSmart. So I think we see that it's having the effect that we really wanted it to have, which is that customers engage more with their water use and that they think about how they manage it. And that's going to be essential if we don't get some rain. So it's really a neat thing to see it developing.
Oh, it definitely value added to the community. And I know we're able to collect a lot of problems with our help outside, our administrative support, catching people with that and telling them about it. No, that's got to be.
By the way, 200,000 gallons, it represents about $3,000 of revenue. But that represents, that saves some people very high bills.
Big trouble, yeah, no,
Right, so
big heartache. No, I
the effect on the customers whose leak we stop is really out of proportion to the amount of revenue that we lose. And our office staff spends a lot of time with some of these customers when you get a $1,000 water bill,
Right.
when you're expecting a $150 water bill, it's traumatic. And we spend a lot of effort, staff spends a lot of effort working with those folks, and we set them up on a bill amortization program, which we then have to track. So, ultimately, stopping the leaks ramifies into much greater, it's better customer satisfaction and relations and a lot less staff effort.
All righty, well, good job to all who persevered and got this rolling. Next is James Durbin again for his monthly highlights.
Good evening again. I'm going to make you sit through 2 months of operations highlights. It's part of your punishment for missing the last board meeting. In October, we had another staff member pass the commercial B license. Replaced a hydrant on Oak and Pilarcitos. We replaced 27 angle stops to facilitate the remaining AMI changeouts.
How many more of those do we have?
That's a good question.
We have about, I'll say 150 of regular meters, regular meters, and then about, I think, 600 fire services, somewhere in that range.
So we still got a ways to go.
But the fire services are largely just connecting the AMI, replacing the head and connecting,
It's not as much effort as these are.
So it's yeah.
We installed an insertion flow probe into the lower Pilarcitos pipeline when we were blending, which helped us kind of manage how the Crystal Springs and Pilarcitos water enters and blends into that pipeline. We were getting delayed reads from San Francisco Water. They were asking us how much water we wanted. We got frustrated because the flow would change, and then they'd say you wanted 800, and we'd be taking 7. So it really helped us get on the same page with San Francisco Water, having our own meter at the bottom of the hill. But unfortunately, we're not getting any more water from that pipeline right now. Lead and copper sampling was a success. We sent out thank you letters to all the customers just this past month. September, we had Crystal Springs and Pilarcitos reservoirs supplying the system. Denison Reservoir dredging happened successfully again. Andrini did a great job there. Pacific Ridge Phase 3 is 2,000 feet were installed in September, and they finished in October, so Andrini's done up there with the underground water infrastructure. We installed a Crystal Springs 500 horsepower motor was installed. Denison Pump Station transformer upgrade started. And then the slide gate arrived. It was damaged, but we already have it back repaired. And they're hopefully going to be installing that in the large spillway at Denison later this month, or later this week, excuse me. Moving into October, we replaced 4 fire hydrants, 21 angle stops. We rebuilt the Pillarcitos pressure reducing valve with some new sensing lines in the vault and the lid. And that allows us to get more well water into that line when we want to capitalize on our Pillarcitos wells. That was something that John Davis and the other staff came up with years back. We replaced the Half Moon Bay Tank 3 center vent. It was in pretty bad shape, so we had the local welding shop fab us a new vent and dome screen, reused the top, and got that installed so it's nice and secure. We did dive inspections of EG2 and EG3 tanks, and cleaning, excuse me, of EG2 and 3 tanks, and we did a dive inspection of the Nunez clear well. The EG2 and 3 tanks both look very
I have a question
good.
about that because EG2's not even a year old, is it? Since we've recoated it and everything?
5
So how
years.
often?
It's 5 years that since we recoated it. We're close to it.
Didn't
4 or
we
5
just
years, right?
do it?
That was EG3.
EG3 we just did.
No, that's the one at the top,
Yeah.
right? But the one halfway down, that wasn't 5 years ago, was it?
I don't think it's been 5 years.
No,
But it's a good idea to do it after when we're still kind of in the,
In the under warranty,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
Really good idea to do it under
Oh,
warranty.
okay.
So it was
typically, how
time for
often
the-
would we do
go
it
ahead.
Out of warranty, how often would we do it?
DDW likes us to clean and inspect every 5 years, every tank.
So this is, we did because
So
it's under warranty.
it was a year since we recoated EG3. We wanted to make sure that the coating was holding up before we activated the cathodic protection, which are basically sacrificial anodes that hang in the water to keep, if there's a coating failure, it will go after the anode rather than the metal of the tank. And we wanted to also take a look at EG2 and see how that tank was doing as well. And we're going to have them come back and clean out the clear well. They ran out of time, and they were nice enough to not charge us a mob fee because some of the delays were on their part. So the dive company's done very well with us. Replaced a failed magnetic meter at the Denniston Water Treatment Surface Wash. As I mentioned, lead and copper thank you letters went out to customers. Crystal Springs and Pillarcitos well is currently our supply now. 2 inch south of Highway 1, emergency replacement started last week. General manager gave an update. If you got any questions about that, we are hoping to be done by the end of the month. And things are moving along quickly. The horizontal drilling moves very rapidly. There was some tough drilling, he said. Those high banks were pretty dense. So we're getting there. We're very close to the end of the line. They still have to tie in the services, disinfect, pressure test. But we are out of the intersection of Miramontes Point Road, which the city has a project for that intersection, so it was really important that we get out of the contractor's way. So we're completely out of the intersection at this point. Andrini was paving today, so there'll be no conflict between us and the city's contractor. ERS topped off the Denison filters. We are working on repairing a failed upper screen on one of the contact clarifiers. More to follow on that as we make progress with that. Pacific Ridge Phase 3 is complete. Downtown 2-inch main replacement project is complete. Denison Pump Station transformer upgrade is nearing completion. It's down to the final from PG&E and getting on their schedule. So luckily, staff did a parallel project where the old transformer's still there. We've activated the old transformer for when we get Denniston up and running. And then it will be just basically a switch over on a day where we go to the new one and they can remove the old transformer. And a 2-inch project for El Granada Pipelines is out to bid. It's a very small, it's 130 feet of 2-inch galvanized pipe, and it's some of the last galvanized pipe that we have in the system. So we're glad to be getting that out to bid. If you have any questions, I'm here at your pleasure.
No, questions? No, it looks quite busy.
Yes.
What's going on? Good, making progress on a lot of fronts. Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and now, as usual, last but not least, hostess with the mostest,
So I just,
Kathleen, and a water
Water
resources informational report.
so I just recycled October's.
Do I?
I just recycled October's staff report and kept it to one, so.
Okay.
So we received our letter from the Department of Water Resources that says that the water audit that we submitted for fiscal year 2017 to meet the Senate Bill 555 requirement addressed the code requirements. Yes. So, took a year. And then we submitted our fiscal year 2018 water audit. So I have a little screenshot of, it's all done electronically now. So hopefully within the next year, we'll hear the same good news from the Department of Water Resources. And on the same track, BOSCA has formed what they call a leak work group, which is where we BOSCA agencies peer-to-peer can learn about each other's attempts to comply with the water audit reporting. So we're going to meet like once a quarter and try to bounce ideas off each other and learn from each other on how to better meet the requirements of the reporting. So I thought that was a good positive effort. Also, in my report, I just have the certificate of appreciation that we got from EPA for working with their WaterSense program. So that's it, unless you have any questions.
Questions on, Anthony, what's the word on the street? Wherever you put your ear to the ground about the state of the water situation in terms of people's perceptions and concerns at this point. We're supposed to get something next week, like Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah, I hear
But
Thanksgiving.
generally speaking, what is people's general attitudes on this?
They're getting nervous and, they're wondering where El Nino is and I think what happened is there was more talk about it and then the fires occurred in both Northern and Southern California. So right now, I think everybody's
Focused on
that. But
those
it
emergencies at this point.
is concerning that we're definitely getting less rain than we did.
I forgot what the state of the reserves in the reservoirs, et cetera.
Oh, they're good.
Keep us good through
Yeah.
this next year. I forget
Yeah.
what was the word on the street. They were good for
Well,
a
San
year.
Francisco officially notified us that they were going to be able to supply all of the water that they've committed to supply, that there wouldn't be there was no request for voluntary conservation.
Through
It'll be through the fiscal year. We go
Through next
fiscal.
June.
Yeah, right.
June of next year.
Yes.
Not this calendar year.
Right, and there's plenty, the San Francisco system was pretty much completely filled,
That's still
including the
there.
water bank.
Yep.
But the need to do any serious thought about conservation would happen before the middle of next year if we don't see some
Well,
stuff soon.
The
correct?
state would take action before San Francisco.
Yes.
Is my guess,
Right.
like last time. And so this technically would be, if we don't get good rainfall this winter, it would be the second consecutive less than normal.
Right.
So we could see action from the state asking for voluntary
Mhm.
as early as 2019, yeah.
As early as the beginning of next year.
Yeah, just,
Correct.
yeah, it's
January,
just depending on
just
how,
top of winter.
yeah, how severe things are. And
Okay, so it remains to be seen, but it's still a potential issue going forward at this point.
Yes, and the state has recognized that since our last drought, water usage has still remained below our 2013 levels by, anywhere from 10 to 20%, depending
Okay.
on where.
So-
So people are still in the habit of being
Okay.
conservative, so,
The people are still well trained to
yeah.
behave and use their judgment. Okay, sounds good. Comments?
Well, the graph looked wild, didn't it? We were talking about the graph. Our district's doing great.
Yeah. Okay, any director requests for future agenda items? And Okay. Okay, hearing none, then we will officially adjourn the meeting.
Wow, almost a record. Did you see that?
That was a